Hi, Jen here from Jen Michelle Coaching, and today I want to talk about, are you in the push-pull dynamic in your love life, in your relationship, in your marriage? It really doesn't matter what stage you're in. For those of you new to my channel, I would love to invite you to subscribe. I release a video weekly. What I mean by the push-pull dynamic is there is one person craving intimacy while the other person is actively avoiding it, thus igniting a chaser-runner dynamic. This can show up in attachment styles. We're all familiar through previous conversations, through anxious, avoidant, and how some of these push-pull cycles can become so deeply ingrained and embedded in the relationship dynamic or in what we seek out in dating, finding certain qualities and characteristics in others that do not serve us really attractive, thus not creating an opportunity for a different way, for a different, sort of perspective and way of moving through relationship to make its way through. So to talk about this a little bit more, the pursuer is craving reassurance and intimacy through connection. So they are pursuing that. They are pushing for that connection to occur. The puller or the runner is actively avoiding it because they feel overwhelmed, they feel flooded by it, they need that alone time to regulate, and they need that sense of safety through getting away from this energy and getting away from this pressure. And so these two work very much against each other, because the more the anxious component of the relationship pushes, the more it ignites the pulling dynamic of the person that is trying to regulate through being alone with themselves or through trying to just find that sense of breath and stability and freedom again. So the more the puller is distancing themselves, the more it activates the other person to push even harder. And so how do we break this cycle? It takes a high level of discipline, of consciousness and awareness to break this cycle, and it can be done. And if you can be strong enough and aware enough and conscious enough and really awaken to these tendencies within you, you have so much power to transform your love life and to transform the level of intimacy that is available to you in all stages of love. So let's dive into this. Number one, recognize that the cycle needs to change, not necessarily him. So it can be easy to say, you need to change, you need to do this, you need to show up, you need to develop this bandwidth, but it's the cycle that needs to change. And by looking at it as the cycle that needs to change, we stop making our partner the enemy. We stop making him bad or wrong or this guy that needs to figure it out. And it shows a deeper level of respect, which of course changes our energy. So we can look at the dynamic and say, okay, this needs to change. So how can I start supporting real change in the patterns that he and I have deeply embedded or have become addicted to for coping with any sort of turbulence or discomfort or disagreement in relationship? The way that we begin to do this is we really ask ourselves, okay, where can I show up differently in this moment? He is clearly, for example, asking for space, or he is clearly not feeling safe or responding to me kind of pushing hard. Where can I pull myself out of it, recognizing that it won't always be me doing all of the work, but since I see the dynamic and since I see what's going on, where can I make a different choice? And as you empower yourself to do this, you're giving yourself the gift of self-respect, restoring dignity, becoming high value again, because it doesn't feel good to push when the other person's not open to it. But it also invites him to see, maybe things can be different. That was not as intense. We didn't go down that road the same way. So it starts to infuse a level of hope and possibility into the exchanges and into the relationship as a whole that wasn't available before. So how can you show up for yourself in this way is number one. Number two, is it worth it? Pay attention, turn inward for a minute. Is it worth it? Is me reacting to whatever emotional experience I'm having, is it worth it right now? Where has this typically led me? Where is this likely to lead me today? Is this going to cost me a high level of intimacy by demanding that he do things or show up for me in this way in my time frame? Only you can answer these questions, but you want to be really ruthlessly honest with yourself so you are setting yourselves up for success. Because if we want to change the structure and the dynamic of a relationship, we have to be willing to face that discomfort and to move through it in a way that is very counterintuitive and perhaps very unnatural for ourselves, recognizing that by changing and taking responsibility for ourselves, we create the best opportunity to grow something new. So by asking yourself if it's worth it, and by recognizing the level of intimacy that's going to cost you or the level of recovery that it's going to cost you, it helps you make better and better aligned decisions. Number 3, this practice of 1 and 2 will eventually lead you to merge together to form a new way. So for example, when my husband and I were healing our push-pull dynamic styles early in our marriage, when I chose to kind of be the change that I wanted to see in the relationship, and I would kind of pull myself out of the anxious tendencies that I had, he really saw this. He would recognize silently that was hard for her. She does not typically do that. He saw me show up. As messy as it was, he really saw me show up and try my very best to invite something new in. And as a result, what happened was that softened his heart. He's a good person, and he saw, wow, that wasn't easy for her. How can I also take ownership of my stuff and start meeting her halfway? And so what happened over time and over the course of our relationship, we've become so good and so natural at showing up for each other, knowing our tendencies. We both stretch ourselves in a way that it doesn't feel like so much like a stretch anymore. It feels like a merging and an understanding and a reverence for each other's past, for each other's nervous systems, and for each other's just emotional sustainability, what we need to be our best selves and how we can support each other in that. And so the final step to this leads to a beautiful merging and a dance that occurs where you're just in harmony, you're in balance with one another. And so these are 3 ways in which you can begin to address this cycle in a deep, meaningful, real, authentic way. And they will support you in changing the direction of your relationship with a high quality masculine man. I would love to hear how these tips land for you. Your comments always mean the world. I love having conversations around this and anything I share. But please check out my site, jenmichellecoaching.com. Check out the link to my new small group program, Attract Him Forever. I will be running it again, and I would love for you to join us if this speaks to you. Contact me at jen@jenmichellecoaching.com if you have any questions on it as well. Much love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.